Hey there, 8th graders. Welcome. I am absolutely thrilled to dive into today's lesson with you. Now, if you've ever felt like reading is just, a boring chore where your eyes kind of glaze over and you're just staring at a page of words, well, get ready. Today, we're going to completely flip that script. We're going to learn how to turn reading into this active, thrilling adventure where you get to be the master detective. So grab your notebooks, sit up straight, and let's get into it, because today is all about making and adjusting predictions.
So, let me ask you this. Have you ever been totally blindsided by a plot twist? I mean, really think about a time a book or a movie completely fooled you. You thought you knew exactly who the villain was, or exactly how the big game was going to end, and then, bam, the story went in a completely different direction. That feeling of surprise really hooks our attention, doesn't it? But here's a little secret for you. Authors actually leave breadcrumbs. They want you to actively hunt for clues. And honestly, if you aren't hunting, you're missing out on half the fun. All right, here's our roadmap for today. First, the adventure of predicting. Second, how to make predictions. Third, testing clues in action. Fourth, wisdom for real life. And finally, the godly learner philosophy. So keep this general structure in mind for your notes.
Okay, Section 1. The adventure of predicting, becoming a reading detective.
Now, the big idea here today is that really good readers don't just passively stare at words, waiting for the story to happen to them. No, they make smart guesses about what's going to happen next. And predicting actually does some incredible things to your brain. It literally keeps your brain engaged, it improves your focus, and it boosts your memory. Think about it. Predicting transforms reading from this passive chore into an active adventure. Instead of just drifting aimlessly through a page, you're constantly testing your thinking against the text. When you make a guess, your brain naturally wants to find out if you were right. And that instantly locks your focus in and helps you remember the details. It's like a game.
Moving on to Section 2, how to make predictions, the evidence formula.
So, how do we actually do this? Because we're not just making wild, random guesses here. There are mechanical steps you need to follow to make smart, evidence-based predictions. Step 1 is preview the text. Look at the title, the opening lines, maybe any visuals, just to form your first impression. Step 2, and I really want you to underline this in your notes because it is absolutely crucial. Right, I predict blank because blank. And then step 3, adjust as new clues appear while you read. You've got to stay flexible.
Let's zoom in on step 2 for a second. The most important part of this is the because clause. This is the part of a prediction that forces you to actually name the specific evidence, or the text clues, backing up your guess. You can't just say, oh, I predict the main character will win. Nope. You have to say, I predict the main character will win because the author noted he trained for 10 hours a day. You're looking for those hints authors deliberately plant for you. Things like sudden changes in the setting or shifts in a character's tone, or maybe a brand new problem popping up. The because is your proof.
All right, Section 3, testing clues in action, worked examples.
Let's actually put this to the test with a story called The Last Leaf. So the context is that it opens with a freezing winter and a character coughing heavily. If we use our formula, we might predict that illness will test their friendship. Why? Because the title hints at last and the opening shows sickness and cold. Now, as we read the early pages, the illness theme is definitely confirmed. Later on, dialogue about sacrifice strengthens our idea even more. So our prediction holds up perfectly, and we can even refine it to say a selfless act will occur. See, detective work at its absolute finest. But wait, what happens when the author tries to trick you? Picture this. A nice neighbor is introduced at the very beginning of a mystery. You'd probably predict they're a helpful friend, right? But halfway through the story, that exact same neighbor is suddenly avoiding questions. Authors will intentionally challenge our initial ideas to force us to pause, take a step back, and reevaluate our evidence.
And when you hit a roadblock like that, well, you just make an update. You'd say something like, I now predict the neighbor hides a key clue because the avoidance contradicts earlier friendliness. Listen carefully here, 8th graders. Changing your mind when new evidence contradicts your initial guess is definitely not a failure. Actually, scratch that, it's the exact opposite. It shows incredible maturity and really strong reasoning skills. It means you're letting the facts guide you, rather than just stubbornly clinging to your first idea.
And guess what? This skill applies perfectly to nonfiction too. Take an article about plastic and rivers that has a subheading titled From Streams to Seas. Our prediction? Well, I predict the piece will trace how local waste becomes ocean pollution because the subheading signals movement. And as we read, sure enough, the sections flow from neighborhoods to deltas to oceans. Confirmed. Subheadings act as a literal forecast for the flow of information. You should absolutely use them to your advantage.
Section 4, wisdom for real life beyond the page.
You see, evaluating evidence isn't just a neat little trick to get an A in language arts. It is a vital life skill. You make a claim, you weigh the evidence, and you revise your thoughts constantly out in the real world. You predict the weather based on the dark clouds outside to plan your day and grab an umbrella. You predict outcomes based on past behaviors to manage risk, like knowing for sure that if you procrastinate on a project, you're going to be super stressed later. You predict reactions to communicate well with your friends and family. This exact same habit you use in reading builds the real decision-making skills you're going to use in school, in your future career, and literally every single day of your life. And this brings us to a really beautiful truth. Psalm 119, verse 66 says, "Teach me good judgment and knowledge, for I believe in your commandments." As you practice predicting, evaluating evidence, and adjusting your thoughts, you aren't just becoming a better reader. You're actually asking God to teach you good judgment. Learning to evaluate evidence properly and make sound decisions is entirely foundational to gaining true biblical wisdom. All right, your mission, applying the skills. So, are you ready to put this good judgment to work? Because this isn't just homework. Consider this a mission to practice your new detective skills. Here are your 5 action items for this week. Number 1. Preview a chapter and write one prediction using a because clause. Number 2. At the chapter's midpoint, revise or confirm that prediction and cite exactly one new clue. 3. After reading, evaluate your final prediction in 3 to 4 complete sentences. 4. Make a prediction about a nonfiction article's final section based purely on its subheadings. And 5. Create a prediction tracker table. Just make sure your table has clear columns for your prediction, the evidence, and your revision. I know you're all going to crush this.
Finally, Section 5, the Godly Learner Philosophy, Education with Morality. Now this brings us to the core heartbeat of HeroesMart Academy. We intertwine biblical morality with education because, frankly, education without morality can hurt. Why is that? Well, if you gain knowledge and intelligence, but you don't have a moral compass, that education can actually be used for harm. It might just make someone more capable of doing their own selfish will. Instead, your knowledge and your sharp intelligence should be tools that help you make wise, God-honoring choices in this world.
Romans 8, verses 6 and 7 teaches us that to be spiritually minded is life and peace. As you grow sharper academically, as you learn to predict, to analyze, and to evaluate, I really want to encourage you to always keep your mind centered on God, on truth, on wisdom, and on righteous choices. Absolutely pursue academic excellence, for sure, but do it as a spiritually minded learner, because that is where true life and peace are found.
So, I want to leave you with this final, important question to think about. How will you use your intelligence to make a God-honoring choice today? You've got the tools to evaluate the evidence in front of you now, both in your books and in your life. Take this active, evaluating, and godly mindset out into the real world. Have a fantastic week of reading, detectives, and I will see you next time.